Hi, welcome, Bruno. Thank you so much for coming into this
Hello.
series. We have been talking about this. I know that you share the same level of enthusiasm that I do, talking about customer experience, customer support, and all the customer-facing teams that work and everything that has happened the last couple of years in this space. So I'm super excited to have you on
hmm
board talking about this with us. So we'll just start with a little bit of your introduction. Tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and your experience.
Sure. And happy Monday. Thank you very much for having me today.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, well, thanks for the introduction. Yeah, my name's Bruno. It's Paulo, and I live in Porto, Portugal. I live here with my girlfriend, my super cute cat. I'd
Oh,
actually
sweet.
show it to you, but uh she's off in a very busy schedule of sleeping,
I,
eating, and
I,
and more
I
sleeping.
like her
So
schedule. I like her
yeah,
schedule.
yeah. It's tough. But yeah, a little bit about me. So, love music, really love music. Love watching movies and things like that. My favorite music genres right now are heavy metal and ambient, which is
Oh,
weird, I know.
interesting.
My Spotify playlists are incredible, as you might guess, and I love a
I
little
think
bit
I'm
of
going to follow
everything. So.
you. Remind me to follow you after this.
Sure. I'll send you a couple of examples. It's pretty weird. But yeah, that's just a little bit about me. I'm typically this type of personality, good humor. That's
Awesome.
that's that's me. Um,
Yeah.
Professionally, started my career development in software development. Okay. At WIT-Software. It was a telecom company, or rather, a software house that developed white label telecom products. Okay. And there, I was straight out of college. So I started doing my master thesis there, and then I just stayed as a software developer for a program that was responsible for the authentication and configurations of devices in telecom networks. So I was responsible for one of its biggest deployments at the time, which was incredible. Well, for someone out of Portugal and straight out of
Hmm.
college to be in a position where I'm developing a product that, when it went into production, was used by 100 million users, that was incredible.
That's wow.
The sheer scale of it was amazing because Portugal is 10 million, 100 million people. So being able to actually be in a position where I see the scale of 10 times that was just amazing. Um,
Awesome.
and it was amazing for a bunch of things. First, I think it was the first time that I actually saw the code that I did being a translation of a client requirement, right?
Hmm.
In college, you used to program stuff, of course, but it's not the same thing. Now you're making something very concrete for a client of yours to use, right? Um, and you're helping them meet their business goals by creating that feature. So it's
Yes.
wonderful to see how it all connected, right? And thirdly, one of the things that I really liked about that was the contact with the clients, and of course, what happened when that feature had problems, right? That was also my first kind of contact with support or technical support, because
Hmm.
I'd be almost full stack. I develop backend, front ends. I'd write the documentation. I'd deliver the software on their services because this was on-prem. So it was wonderful to see how all of these things kind of came together. It was really great. By the time we took it to production, it had been 3.5 years by then. I decided that I wanted to try something new. So I was referred to a very dear friend to Feedzai to join their support
Hmm.
team. Actually, the first support engineer out of Europe, and I thought that that would be a fantastic challenge because I'd be able to help grow the team. I'd be one of the first to actually come in. So it was really great. Feedzai is a company that has allowed me to grow immensely. So Feedzai helps banks and financial institutions detect and prevent fraud using AI. Okay, so a
Yeah.
very short summary of what Feedzai does. So think about a quick example. Essentially, every time that you make a transaction, that transaction would flow into Feedzai's technology, and it would analyze it in real time to spot suspicious activity and stop fraud before it happens. So in a nutshell, that's what we do.
So your
So
clients are all the big banks right now.
exactly.
Mm.
We have wonderful clients, like amazing challenges, and I think that's one of the things that really excited me about the opportunity to go to Feedzai, because I was able to go, okay, I can see how this is going to have an impact, right? And especially as a first engineer in EMEA, it would be a wonderful growth opportunity. So yeah, and
Awesome.
started out as a software a support engineer, and since then, today I'm actually the interim head of support while we hire our director of support. So yeah, it's been an
Amazing. So
interesting ride.
you
Yeah.
have context on both sides, which is technical support and your
Yes.
other kinds of support as well. And I love the way how you said amazing challenges. That's such a great approach to the actual challenges in support. So coming to my first question essentially is that what is some of the things that you really enjoy working in this role? You mentioned that you've really grown
Hmm.
and you've kind of set the base in terms of the support side. So, what are the things that you really enjoyed in this role?
Sure. So I think today the thing that I most enjoy about this role is just being able to help someone unblock and challenge, resolve a particular situation that, again, as you said, with the type of context that I have, becomes a little bit easier sometimes to handle, and especially to help someone grow. As a manager, being able to help someone grow, being able to see them um, grow into a new position, get that promotion, be it within the team or outside the team. That's to me, it's just amazing. I've had direct reports, for instance, that have left Feedzai that have gone to become managers themselves. And it's wonderful to keep in touch and then understand how they're doing and how they connect some of the experience that they have, and they talk to you a little bit about that, and I really appreciate that. I really appreciate the people side of it. For instance,
The
in
roles.
one-on-ones, um, having someone tell me that, hey, I'm having this personal problem. I'm really feeling tired about this particular task, or I'm really had enough about doing this. And knowing that we're able to create that safe space to make that happen, I think today that's one of the things that I most enjoy about my role. Yeah,
That's amazing because having that personable skill is so important for management and
exactly.
also for being a support person, whether it's just customer support or it is technical support. In both
Precisely.
cases, there is this common misconception that if I'm talking to a technical support person, that person will not have that much empathy, which is so not true because in order to be any kind of support, you need to have a lot of personable skills and this sort of desire to help people.
Hmm.
Is that
Hmm.
something, would you agree to that?
Completely agreed. Completely agreed. It's the soft skills that you have for a technical support position, for a customer support position, for a customer success position, a project manager, whatever it is, they matter. At the end of the day, you're going to be face to face with a client that sometimes is not going to be able to fully express what they're feeling in the clearest way, or what they need in a very concrete way, and you'll need to have the soft skills to be able to manage that conversation, perhaps manage the particular expectation from the client. So it matters. It's not something that just because you technical support you have less of. Not exactly. You might have a different skill set, because again, technical support might have a little bit of a different skill set than customer support when it comes to the technical investment that you do. But in terms of soft skills, they need to be there, of course, because sometimes you'll have conversations and you need to manage that. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a unique, I feel technical support is a slightly unique skill set. And I wanted for you to explain a little bit the difference between technical support and customers, like just customer support.
Sure, sure. So, well, I'll start with Feedzai's example. Maybe that's a very good
Mm.
one. Um, at Feedzai, the level one support team is quite technical. All of the team members either have programming experience or have a background in computer science. They're able to speak a common engineering language and perform deeper technical investigations on the issues that pop up. This is historically because of the portfolio that Feedzai has on on-premise clients, where sometimes it's not as easy as handling issues in your own cloud because it's the client's infrastructure, it's the client's accesses, it's the client's way of setting up things. So it becomes a little bit different. So we've always
Yes.
hired rather technical roles to be able to find a way and manage situations in those contexts. Um, and I believe this is a little bit what differentiates it from different types of support, such as customer support. It's mainly due to the type of situations it aims to
Mm.
address. So in our
Yes.
functions, engineers would be able to, for instance, look into product code, interpret product logs, help identify bugs, analyze network captures, triage performance issues, etc. So you'll typically see a smaller volume of tickets, but
Hmm.
requiring a greater degree of technical investment, right, to understand and to address the
Interesting.
problem. On the other side, and I've never managed customer support teams, but from contact with other leaders in that space, what I understand from a customer support function is something a little bit different. You help with other less technical assessments. You're able to help clients using product features. You're able to help clients unblock situations, and you're able to do that not requiring that same level of technical investment. It's not
Hmm.
it's not that it is less important. It's as important as, okay, it's not less
Yeah.
important. It's just different. You have a greater volume of tickets, but the type of technical investment that you need to perform to be able to address them will typically be small. You'll be able to, for instance, invest more into playbooks, into self-serviceability, things that maybe
Hmm.
on the technical support side, where the products may be a little bit more complex, where the failure scenarios that you'll have may be a little bit um, of a problem to manage because they might be a myriad of issues. It becomes a different beast altogether.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think in traditionally what happens is that in just customer support, there's a large volume to deal with, but and some of part of that volume will convert into a technical support issue.
Hmm.
But in order to keep that volume catered to, the technical support issues are then handled by a technical team altogether because there's a lot of work to look into. It's
Hmm.
not a question answer. It's not an immediate answer
Hmm.
either. Which brings
Hmm.
me
Hmm.
to my next question. In B2B businesses such as Feedzai or the industry that you've been in, there is such a heavy emphasis on immediate response whenever a customer
Hmm.
reaches out to you because it is their entire business is at stake if something is not working or something has happened and they need support. So sending out an immediate response in many cases the key KPIs for most customer support teams.
Hmm.
In your opinion, there's a constant debate between fast response and accurate response. In your opinion, in your experience, what matters most to the customer? Like, do they want to
Yeah,
hear an immediate response, or is there a way to give the right response, but it might not be that immediate?
sure. It's a very interesting question. I think there's not one or the other. I really think that
Hmm.
it's heavily depends on the situation at hand. Okay. Um,
Yes.
so considering Feedzai, Amazon, for instance, some of the major banks that we work with, they all have mission critical software that is incredibly important to their business, right? If that software, for instance, if those services are for some reason disrupted, then their
Hmm.
clients and their clients' clients even are immediately
Yeah.
exposed to potential
Yes.
impact. In
Yeah.
our case, if our services are disrupted, our clients and their clients are exposed to fraud risk, regulatory concerns, compliance issues. So in those particular cases, speed is of the essence because you need to address the problem. You need to restore services. You need to mitigate that issue as soon as possible. Every second, you're exposing your clients to potential malicious intent. So you don't want that. You need to solve that as soon as possible. But
Yeah.
on the other hand, and it's something that's very interesting to see. We have cases where, for instance, fraud changes. Just like anything, fraud adapts to the different mechanisms that you try to implement to protect
Very
people
true.
from. It's the nature of the thing. So if a client reaches out to us and asks us to analyze a specific fraud scenario, we really need to take a step back and understand what exactly is going on for us to be able to work with the client to develop that change on the risk strategy. So at that point in time, you really need to do a full assessment and take the time to understand what's happening. Again, if it's something like um, a hacker has discovered a way to cause a tremendous degree of impact by exploring a particular fault in your risk strategy, we can have the speech to address that and put a stop to it. But if
Hmm.
it's more of a full assessment so that we start changing a little bit and adapting things to a new reality, then that assessment requires time and accuracy is key on that. So again, I think it depends. If it's very
It,
urgent with high impact on operations, speed. If it requires a deeper analysis, it's accuracy. Because what I see is that in my experience, clients will accept a slow response time if they're kept up to date on the progress, if they know that they'll get a resolution that really fits what they're looking for, but they will not tolerate an incorrect response that will then
hmm.
potentially lead them to problems and will just be a waste of everyone's time. So I think that's the key, balancing both depending on the situation.
I think that is such a great point. The experience that you've shared, that clients will be okay with that slower response as long as it's one that is coming from some level of investigation and accuracy,
Yeah.
but not an incorrect response. And I feel like this is where support as a whole can really evolve because we have fixated on speed so much that
Mhm.
we're just about sending an automated response as opposed to something that can be truly valuable to a client on that first response, right?
Exactly.
And when coming to what you're just saying, that it depends on the type of question. So having a sort of triage at the start to determine the urgency and the intensity of the query as opposed to immediately responding or jumping the gun is so
Mhm,
important.
mhm.
So in terms of triaging, what are some of the triaging and collaborating with other teams, like for example, support and technical support? What are some of
Yeah,
the best practices that come to your mind?
sure. Um, well, I think first and foremost, you need to define what the problem is. Whatever the
Hmm.
client is reaching out with, you need to ask the questions to get as much information as you can up front so that you're able to define what exactly is the situation and where to go about next. So at that point in time, having, for instance, a template of the info that you need to get from the client, maybe already embedded into your portal, or maybe something that you can easily reply to the client with hey, Mr. Client, we need this, and that piece of information. I think that can be quite effective. Then when you get that, I think it's about narrowing down um, based on your findings. You're analyzing whatever information the client sent you, and now you kind of take a systematic approach as to, okay, so uh, they've sent this, this, and that. So, okay, so I figured this might be a scenario A or a B. Let me try that. Let me see if it's scenario A and take it from that and start narrowing down things. You become a little bit your own Sherlock Holmes, right? You stop a little
Yeah.
bit as a detective to really understand what's happening. I think one of the biggest recommendations that I'll have here is to avoid biases, avoid assumptions. It's easy for us, and sometimes it happens to me. It's easy for me to go, ooh, this really seems like a scenario that I saw, a couple of weeks
Hmm.
ago. But sometimes it's not. So you really need to stop for a moment and understand what's happening and really take a moment to go, okay, is this it? Do I have the proof that shows me that this is the same type of scenario? Okay, cool. Let's continue. If not, let's continue on to a different scenario and see what I can do. Because the worst thing that you can do is figure out that it's scenario A, and scenario A is actually going to take a full system restart for some reason, when
Yeah.
in fact you only really needed to restart a particular instance. So you definitely want to avoid that.
Very true.
In in terms of team collaboration, what I'd say is having a place where the people addressing this particular incident, say, can discuss the situation without interference. Um,
Hmm.
it's very important that if you're taking the time to investigate something, and if you have your incident response team together to address a particular situation, that they are indeed shielded from interference, that they're able to focus on the task at hand, right? So being able to jump on a quick call with everyone to talk a little bit about the problem, or a chat if you find effective enough. um, that's awesome, because people can then focus on the investigation. They can focus on the matter at hand. If the client wants to call, okay, like a customer support representative or maybe the incident commander can go on the client call and talk a little bit and kind of share a little bit the progress of the investigation, but not having the entire team there, because that's going to create a lot of friction. Um, and I think finally, when it comes to collaboration, you're all talking, you're shielded, you're focusing on the matter at hand. Now it's about keeping notes of keeping track of what's been gathered so far. Um, Taking a step of, what we've observed, this is what we've tried, this is what we're going to try next, so that you document everything in a place that's like easily accessible, easily discoverable as well.
Hmm.
Um, so if anyone new joins that incident call, they can easily grasp what's going on. And after the incident is solved, it's much easier to conduct a postmortem, because you took notes of what you were seeing when you were seeing it. You're able to establish the timeline. You're able to establish what you did, what you should have done. So you're able to learn from it and adapt playbooks, adapt articles, wherever it might be. So I'd say those would be like my top three tips. I think.
Awesome. It's a completely like scientific deduction, if anything. It's a full
Yeah.
process. And I love how you mentioned that it makes sure that the team is isolated in terms or not having interference when solving the problem, because I can see how that can be really, really disruptive. So
Yes.
when it
Yes.
comes to in our industry, when it comes to customer handling or that relationship with the customer, there's the support team, there's technical support, then there's also the element of customer success team. And
Hmm.
many times and many areas, I have heard and like experienced this myself, that when a support team uh, is not catering, or is not just the supporting. When the client is more anxious, the client will, after talking to support, ends up going to customer success representative, or vice
Hmm.
versa. Like, they might just not even reach out to support, they go to their success representative or account manager for that matter. And then there's another person in the picture. Is
Hmm.
this
Hmm.
something that you find to be a common problem or challenge for collaboration? And what do you think are ways to make sure that the customer's issue solving is in one area and the like the success side is not impacted by that?
Sure. Um, that's a very good question. We've actually had both. So
Hmm.
we have cases where, for instance, the client is, as you said, anxious about a particular situation. They want to solve it as soon as possible. So they reach out to the customer success manager to be able to get that priority in. Let's put it that way.
Hmm.
We typically say that they escalate this situation to the customer success manager. Um, but we've also had cases where, for instance, they've talked with the customer success manager. For some reason, they've not received the reply that they wanted, and now they reach out to us because, hey, I was talking with this person and I still haven't received a reply. Can you help me out with this? So we've had both. I I don't think I think it only really becomes a challenge if the teams are
Hmm.
not properly aligned into what they're
Yeah.
trying to achieve. Okay. So we've had cases where, for instance, the client reaches out to the customer success manager after talking with us, and they give a particular bit of information to the customer success manager, who then shares it
Yeah.
with us. But it
Hmm.
contradicts what the client told us. And then
Hmm.
we come to an understanding that, in fact, what the client told to the CSM, how the CSM interpreted it, and then how the CSM told us were different things. It's not a fault of the CSM. It's not a fault of the client. They're just anxious and they're trying to go, they're trying to find a way to get some degree of support uh, in a quicker fashion that they're getting now. So I think it's really about alignment. I've had cases
Yes.
where a discussion with the CSM on why the client is a little bit more anxious or more stressed reveal that they're undergoing some compliance process, something that is meant to ensure that they're fully compliant with the regulatory local government laws. And they're very stressed about making sure that the audit goes okay. They want to see everything
Hmm.
done. Okay, cool. We can adapt the priority to best fit some of those temporary needs. They're a spike during that customer's journey, right? So it's gonna be something temporary. We can adapt to it. And I think that's the alignment that can happen with both teams, and then that can lead to very, very interesting synergy. I've seen firsthand cases where we do that. We take a moment to be able to adapt to a particular set of demands that the client has, which are going to be very temporary in nature, but he just needs some degree of assistance right now. And then we get a lot of praise from the client precisely because we are able to take that step and adapt. So it can be very, very fruitful.
That's amazing. So basically, what you're saying is that there is alignment, and what I'm also getting is that there's certain context, right? So customer success team, that the CSM person had certain context on the client and what is going on with them. And
Yeah,
we would normally assume that that context might be transferred on to some other team that the customer is talking to. But these things kind of get lost in the conversation. So
exactly.
having the same context goes for similar interpretation, and that makes sure that the message that the customer is coming in giving you is going across the board. So it's a very
Exactly.
interesting thing. I do wonder though that because we experience this a lot, a client goes into with the customer success team, then they go to the support team, and the challenge that we face is that they're both using different systems. So
Hmm.
support team has a very traditional help desk system, and then the success team has a different, mostly using their inbox or whatever communication channel they have, right? Do
Mhm.
you feel it's important for them to have to be on the same system for communication?
Not only do I feel that's quite advantageous, we actually took that step internally.
Amazing.
Like during last year, we were able to combine and create that approach. Today we use Zendesk. Okay, love the
Yeah.
platform, and we've used it for ever since I joined Feedzai. We've used it as a ticketing system. And
Yeah.
what we did was we adjusted our support portal so that depending on
Hmm.
your choices, it either goes to the support team because you have a particular problem, a particular request that you need to see handled, or it'll go to the CSM team because you're asking for additional training requests or a change request, and that needs to be managed in a different way. Okay. So both teams actually use the same platform, and that allows
Amazing.
us to bridge precisely that gap that you were talking about. Because in the past,
Hmm.
what would happen is CSMs would need to handle everything out of their email box. You,
Yes.
it's, I think it's sometimes something that we don't give enough value.
Hmm.
You can do a lot of stuff from your email box. You can set
Hmm.
it up in a way that it's incredibly efficient, sure. But when you want to understand how many training requests you're getting, how many change requests you're getting, what was the time that it took to actually make sure that a change request was handled from the moment that the client told us to the moment that it was delivered, then you cannot get that type of thing from an email box. You might be able to get some, but not everything.
Hmm.
And having everyone on the same ticketing system allows you to have that, allows you to get that reporting in, that data in, which then allows you to adapt things a little bit better. If you're getting a ton of training requests for a particular topic, well, maybe that's a cue to check out your certification program, check out your training program, understand whether that should be adapted in a way. But you
Yeah.
get that having that data, and you get that data if everyone is in a
The same.
platform that allows them to do that. And from the CSM point of view, it also has a different advantage. Since they're in the same platform, they're used to using the platform, and we've actually created plugins that allow them to immediately see how many tickets are open, how many tickets are pending, and things like that. When they're on their ticket, a little plugin on the top right tells them that. So they can easily go, okay, the client is telling me this, they have a few, let me check what they are. Ooh, okay, this is connected to that. And they can get additional visibility into what's going on. And on our side, it's also an advantage. They're in the platform, they know the client context as we just talked, so they can give us that information because they just saw a ticket being open. Ooh, they're asking this because of that, and we're able to cater a little bit different and adapt to the needs. So overall,
That's
I think it's
amazing.
quite advantageous on all parties.
Yeah, it's great that you guys have solved it. Same system, and giving is crucial for that alignment and the way you take
Yeah.
in that information and how that is being that visibility across the board, right? So, thank you so much for sharing this part of how you guys solve it. This is
Oh,
something
anytime.
that has come up with so many times, and
Hmm.
now things are changing. There are changing trends in this entire industry with the advent of AI, with the way teams are changing, with the expectations
Hmm.
of the customer as well. What are some of the latest trends that you are seeing in this industry?
Well, as you said, the latest and greatest is AI. The the type of tools that are being launched, enhancements to the worker support teams are incredible. I've seen um, things from support agent assistants by drafting
Hmm.
emails, suggesting replies, suggesting changes to SOPs, um, predictive support by analyzing historical tickets and already giving you a clue as to what you can do next, or even identifying potential future issues. Agent training. I've had a fantastic demo recently with a company called Agent Trainer, where they're building a product that allows you to simulate chats with actual users. And you can set up the
Amazing.
test scenario, and you can set up the type of keywords that you're expecting that the agent will tell the customer so that you can train your agents in a particular set of skills, right? So it's the things that I've been seeing are just incredible. Chatbots that can consume your documentation, and that helps both internal teams and the client. Sentiment analysis, the list goes on and on. So those advances have been incredible. Like I've been loving some of the demos that I've been seeing. We're actually studying a couple of different use cases internally to adapt and implement AI tools. So it's been incredible. The only thing that I sometimes feel about that type of trend, and I don't know if I don't know if you kind of if you feel the same way, is I'm concerned about it being seen as kind of a solution to all problems.
Hmm.
Um, I'm concerned with it being applied without a concrete value proposition to clients, implemented because there's hype, because you have a solution, not because you have a problem. Let's put it that way, right?
Yeah.
I've seen leaders try to apply this because it was cool, not fully grasping the underlying details of the problems at hand, right? You hear about these success stories about being able to deflect 50% of your tickets, but the reality
Yeah.
is really never that simple. I've actually seen one full post from Susan Souza, an ex-director of customer support at Airbnb in Lou. She also talks about this and talks at length about considering the client's experience, right? So if you're applying these tools, you really need to look to understand what the support teams are going through, the type of tickets that they're having, the operations, the level of detail, whatever it might be, but also what it means to the clients, the impact on their
Yeah.
experience, how the customer journey is going to need to be adapted to make sure that the experience throughout is solid, is consistent as you implement such a tool. So those trends have been amazing. I've been seeing an array of wonderful products being launched that I think are going to be incredible enhancements to the work of support teams. Um, but you need to take a little bit of a precaution when implementing them. It needs to be something where you've established a vision of what you want to achieve
Hmm.
instead of that looks cool. Let me see how I can fit it into my current experience.
Absolutely. It also needs to be about how much value it is truly adding as opposed to just being cool or trendy.
Precisely.
And I completely share the same sentiment. I feel like some things that might not be that needed today are just adding to the bloat of tech stacks as
Yeah.
opposed to adding true value. And the other part is the founder of HubSpot really put it nicely. The CEO of HubSpot, he said that AI is enhancing your life.
Hmm.
It is like it's complementing your work. It is not replacing your work. So if you're going to give your work away to it, that's not how it's going to work. It's not going to be beneficial.
Exactly.
To use it to optimize yourself, which is the way I use it on a daily basis as well. And I strongly feel that in the world of support, and any customer experience for that matter, you do have to take into account, especially in B2Bs, the personability factor of it, the human factor of it,
Yes.
the interpersonal
Yes.
skills factor of it, right? Like we started out with the fact that people who like to solve problems are in this role, and they like to do that because they talk to the customer. So that thing
Hmm.
is something that is still that does require support, that does require people, and it can be amplified by having AI actually taking off the work that is constant. It is that is might be redundant. Some of the things that
Hmm.
we've been talking about, like like maybe triage for some level, to some level,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
thinking
Yeah.
that it's going to take
Completely.
over everything, I feel, I feel like that's again the hype part of it.
No,
So we're
the personability.
nearing,
No,
yeah,
just to tell you, I completely agree with what you just said. Like the personability factor is not something that you can replicate today. Um,
yeah,
I feel as though um, in the future, this is already a reality today, but I feel as though in the future that's going to be a selling point for some companies. The fact that
yeah.
they'll
I
have
think so too.
premium support because it's going to have people behind it. Like I
Yeah,
had a very interesting experience recently where I purchased an item from a website that operates in Portugal, and it's about a piece of heart. Okay. Um, my girlfriend loved it, and I want to buy it for her birthday. So I purchased the painting, and the delivery was delayed.
Hmm.
For some reason, the delivery service was just not working. I spent 3 weeks waiting for it when I was supposed to be expecting it like 5 days later. But I really appreciated the fact that that company, I could have just gotten on WhatsApp and received some chatbot, what's your problem? And I tell you about the problem, and then the chatbot tells me about, oh, well, it's delayed, and we'll get in touch with the service, blah blah blah, something like that. They took it a step further. We actually, and I was reviewing this with my girlfriend because I just found it to be quite amazing. Um, P55, they actually sent me an email asking about whether I had received any degree of feedback from the service and what feedback that was. They pinged me every couple of days to check whether I had received or if I'd received any degree of feedback from the company. They got in touch with their account manager on the delivery services side to make sure that they received some additional information and they forwarded to me. And when everything was said and done, I actually received a phone call from one of their account managers going, I just wanted to check if everything is okay with the payment, if you received it correctly, if there's any problems at all. And they really sat down with me to talk a little bit about what the problem was. They actually asked me to go a little deep into what I'd been told and things like that, so they could consider that in a future renewal with that particular delivery service. So it was just that premium. It wasn't like a big piece of art, like I spent $100 or something like that. It didn't
Yeah.
it didn't need, and nor was I expecting that level of service for that price point, but they
Yeah.
really took it a step further. So I think
Yeah.
that's going to be a big differentiator in the future. You could have solved that with AI, sure, but they actually
Hmm.
took it to a very personal, very attentive, proactive path,
Yeah.
and I really appreciated that for it. Yeah.
I think the fact that a company would take our time and do that is amazing. And that is, you're right, that now the trend is that actually like providing human support might be the premium
Yeah.
support, which is mind blowing to me. But moving to the end of this, what is the one piece of advice that you would like to give to companies that want to transform or essentially set up their entire support function?
That's a very interesting question, and that could take a whole nother hour to talk about, right?
That's
But
true.
I think the biggest piece of advice, and I think I kind of touched on that during during when we were talking about the trends in AI. Make sure that you establish a very concrete vision of what you want to achieve. Um, don't just change for the sake of change. That's never good. That's going to impact your employees. That's going to impact your clients. Make sure that you take time to understand what clients are needing, what's going on with your support team, what is the vision that you want to achieve, and then after you've had these discussions and after you've defined that vision, make sure that you have the input from the frontline engineers, from the frontline agents in designing that solution. You're going to be exploring a gold mine of knowledge that you may not even know existed, but you'll empower them to actively participate in that process. And clients are going to notice it because if there's one thing that a client will notice is if an employee is having a good experience with their company. They can tell. So creating that vision, establishing that, making sure that everyone is a part of the process, that you're empowering them to talk a little bit about that, to share their experience. I think that's the biggest piece of advice that I can share.
Amazing. I'm gonna end with one last question, which is
Sure.
if you could just share a short story, or it can be long as well, where you actually like got exceptional praise. Like you gave really good support to a customer and you got a lot of praise for it.
Sure. Actually, that's interesting. We kind of, I think one of the best stories that I have is precisely with that discussion that we were having around CSMs and the connection there. We had a
Hmm.
customer that they had a few tickets
Hmm.
that represented issues of low impact, okay? Small things, but over a few tickets. And when bundled up, those things actually led to a very big productivity hit on their
Yeah.
frontline fraud analysts. But we weren't able to surface this when we were triaging the tickets. Again, it was a few tickets, and they all talked about some issues of floor impact. We weren't able to see this. Um, but the CSM was able to identify this during a weekly call that they had with the client. So the CSM reached out to us, talked a little bit about what was going on. And once we were finally able to understand what exactly is going on, we actually had a couple of calls with the client so that they'd show us what they typically grow through on their daily operations. And we were able to understand how all of those little details were impacting them heavily. That's when we
Hmm.
were able to prioritize the fix together with our engineering teams to have the thing included in an earlier release. And while that wasn't there in place, we're able to find a way to mitigate the problem by giving the client a particular piece of information, things like that. So when this was all aligned, we had a call with the client. We acknowledged the fact that we weren't able to surface this. We acknowledged the fact that this could have been handled in a much quicker manner, but that we had an ETA, and in the meantime, that hey, here's the mitigation that we're going to put in place. Fast forward a couple of weeks, the release is with the client installed in their environment, and the client is, giving us praise, very happy with the results because we because of the fact that we adapted the response time despite the, the type of priority that you'd otherwise give to those tickets, um, the diligence to make that assessment when we started hearing these complaints, but also the openness to acknowledge the fact that we didn't see it in the first place. Um, and I think that's one of the best recent stories that I have because
Amazing.
it's it's one of those things where a client that doesn't reach out to me worries me more than a client that reaches out to me very often. I've seen the effects of loyalty in clients when they reach out to us and you're able to give them the support. Yes, the client may be upset because a particular issue happened, but
Hmm.
just like one of the first directors that I had taught me, the client comes for your product, but they actually stay for the support that they receive, and you can see that
That's so
you can
true.
see that live.
Yeah.
Um, we've had clients that go through some critical phases in their own business or a new product rollout that then gives them a couple of problems, but you get additional loyalty there. You can see it, the type of connection that you establish with clients by you being there, attending to the situations and being able to solve it. So yeah, that was a pretty good recent
I
story
love
that was.
this. A client comes for the product but stays for support. Absolutely amazing. Did he say this or somebody else
Yes.
said and he quoted?
No, no. Well, I don't know. I don't know. He told me he said this, and I just loved the sentence, and it's stuck with me since then.
I think
So yeah.
that's amazing and it's a big takeaway for this series. Thank you so much. If there's anything else you'd like to add, please
Thank you.
do. But this has been so insightful and also very aligned because I think we think the same way.
No, won't have much to add. All I'll say is I very much appreciate the fact that I was able to have this opportunity to talk with you today to share a little bit of my experience, but also to thank you for doing these series. I don't think we talk enough about these types of challenges, about these types of teams. I think that sometimes there's this sentiment that they're not as important because they're not the people
Yeah.
developing the product, but it couldn't be further from the truth. And you taking a moment to create these series, I think it's really great. So thank you very much for that.
Awesome. That is so motivating. I want to keep doing this, and we want to keep doing this, and this might not be the last time we have you here.
Sure, sure, sure. By all means, if I can help, that'll be a pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bruno. Have a great Monday. I don't know what time it is over there, but it is 3 p.m.
It
over
is.
here.
Yeah, it's 5 to 10. So just starting
Uh,
my day.
awesome. Have a great day. See you.
Thank you.
Bye
You too.
bye.